Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Anthony. Listen, I'm excited for this episode because I've been waiting to do this, but I also understand this might be your very first time clicking that button and checking out the show. So first off, let me tell you what the show is all about. Each and every single week, we continue to bring you, whether it's an inspiring person or a message that's truly going to help you, fam. It's going to help you figure out the question we have all asked ourselves at some point. I don't care where you are in life. You've asked yourself the question of the podcast, and that is, school's over, now what? And I cannot tell you how many times this show has continued to be at the top of the charts on Apple, on iTunes. So I appreciate you, fam. And if you've been sticking with us for quite some time, you already know how I like to kick this thing off with the review of the week. This week's review of the week, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you see it right now, comes from D Nurturer. And they wrote, "Thank you, Shawn Anthony, for sharing your voice, other voices on subjects that's helpful in teaching and inspiring us. Thank you." Listen, fam, I appreciate you for spending the time and leaving the review. I'm gonna put that right back up on the screen, because if you've gained anything from this show, right? If you've ever had that moment where you listen to an episode, perhaps it was a solo episode, perhaps it was a guest. We don't ask for money, fam. Only thing we ask is that you scroll to the bottom of your screen right now. If you're listening to this in audio format, scroll to the bottom of your screen, click that 5-star rating, and leave your review. It's helped us do tremendous things. Also, if you're listening to this right now and watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, become a subscriber as we continue to elevate and take the show to the next level. Listen, I'm excited for this episode, and I wanted to do a solo episode. You've seen the topic, you've seen the title, and I really want to share with you guys something that I've been holding back for a very long time, and telling you I have finally quit that 6-figure. I finally quit that corporate job, and I have went full-time podcasting, right? Here's the thing. It may be a shocker for some of you. You see me move throughout multiple states. You see me with Ed Milet, Grant Cardone. You see me with so many different people, right? The crazy thing about it, fam, I was still working while doing this. So I wanted to give, my strategy now that I am removed and fully all the way in. I want to give you guys the strategy of what I did and how I was able to quit my job and become full-time with podcasting. So if you're writing down things, you're taking down notes, you can apply this in multiple areas of your life. So fam, get ready. Number one, you got to think about, how can you take a hobby and turn it into a skill, right? Take a hobby and turn it into a skill. I started the show back in June 2018. And at the beginning of the time, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was moving. Whether it was setting up interviews, whether it was solo episodes, whether it was inspirational moments, right? If you have a hobby, you got to get really, really good at it. And as you're getting good at it, you're going to start finding out different things that, can turn into revenue, or different things where people will say, you know what? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And, turning podcasting into a skill set, people started to ask me, how are you, collaborating with some of these big names? What's the process of even starting, my own podcast? A lot of you may be listening to this right now and you're like, you know what? You can do this. That's the motivation for this episode. Like, I want to be able to show you that you can do this too, fam. You can make this happen. If you got a voice, you got a message, master it, right? Master it. The number 2 thing I want to tell you right now is, whenever you take a hobby into a skill and it turns to revenue, you got to legitimize the business. So an important step that we did last year is that we took the business and turned it into an LLC. That's right. Turned it into an LLC. And you're probably wondering, okay, if I have a business, Shawn, and I turn it into an LLC, can I immediately just say, you know what? I'm making enough money. I can quit my job. And here's what I would tell you. Hesitate, but make sure you do enough research, right? So for me, I found out that when your business is LLC, is legitimate, you have to have 2 years of tax. You have 2 years, fam. 2 years of tax records in order to utilize that new income to get you like some large purchases. And I'm talking about like the house, right? The house was one thing I had to make sure I took care of. And perhaps you listen to this right now and you're like, you know what, fam, I got to get the crib, right? You got to legitimize that business for at least 2 years to do that. So what's so important right here, and that's why, number 3 was take 2 years of taxes to make, take those 2 years of taxes and realizing that's what it takes. Because you want to use that job that you have to go ahead and make those large purchases, right? You want to use that job, those numbers on paper. And for me, I was making more money outside of my job, but I couldn't use that on record. But I wanted to make sure I took care of everything. And for some people, that might be a huge, huge point. So you got to use that job income, right, to get that house. Use it, right? Build that credit score. Do what you got to do, right? If you got to, you want the cars, whatever that is for you, you got to do it. Because the most important thing I can tell you, and this is why number 4 is so important to me, is that you have to be prepared. Set a financial goal and a budget. So whatever number that is for you, I hear a lot of entrepreneurs and people who have taken like the leap. You have to figure out, what is that number for you to survive, fam? Like, what is that number for you to survive? Right. And if you're getting that number to survive and you're getting it at a substantial amount and a consistent amount, that's everything you need. Right. You understand your budget. You understand your medical expenses. You understand, how many times you eat out a week. You understand. Right. And why put yourself in a position and work at a company where as soon as you leave, they already got your replacement? When I made my departure, leaving that job and jumping into this. And for people who may not know, I have a background as a brand manager, someone who's worked in specialty sales, someone who has been in charge of merchandise execution for some of the biggest companies in the world, for Target, for Macy's, for Belk. These are all companies that I had worked at, and I made it to a very, very high level. However, I realized something really quickly. If I'm building their brand, if I'm building, their success, and I'm making this so much success in what I really got a passion for, imagine if I put the energy and time into me. That's what you got to ask yourself. Like, if you're doing something and you got all these accolades and people love you, but you don't really love it, then what you doing, fam? Like, what you doing, right? You have to really make that leap. And, for me, it was little signs along the way, right? Little signs along the way. I remember, just randomly clicking a button and stumbling across Eric Thomas speaking. Eric Thomas spoke, and he said something that even right now is still my screensaver on my phone. And it's a picture of my kids, but the screensaver in the quotation marks of what he said is, if you have a family, you need to have a sense of urgency. Put your plan together and jump as soon as possible. When I heard that, I just knew I had to put the plan together to make things shake, to make things happen. And now here's what you can expect. You can expect us to take this show that we've been doing for the last 3 years to a whole different level. You can expect more podcast episodes. You can expect, bigger guests. We've had some huge people. You can expect collaborations. In the next month, just in September alone, I will be traveling in over 6 cities, in 6 different states, helping build the brand of a huge person that is out here in the social media world and is an entrepreneur. And the reason I'm telling you that is that opportunity would never exist if I was still at a job. It just wouldn't. Imagine trying to get time off, right? Imagine trying to get time off. Imagine, and I think now that I'm removed and I've been removed for 2 weeks, like, I cannot only imagine having that uncomfortable conversation and asking somebody, hey, can I get this time off? Because I remember the birthdays I couldn't get off. I remember like it was yesterday. Like, I really remember the birthdays I couldn't get off. I remember the occasions I wish I could be a part of. And at some point, you're going to have to take control of your life. And if you've been listening to our podcast, you've been listening to our show, you have something in you, whether it's momentum, whether it's power, whether it's intuition, whether it's focus, whether it's drive. You have something in you that wants more. You wouldn't be sticking with us this long, right? And you deserve the best of the best. So my challenge to you right now, if you're listening to this, is to be inspired, to be motivated, right? To really figure out what is it that you can do and do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. That's the only way you're going to truly have success, because you'll have little sparks where you're like, okay, that was nice. That was cool. But imagine if you were all in. Listen, fam, I hope this episode has inspired you. I hope it has, you've seen the journey. You guys started with me and started listening to this podcast. I remember starting this podcast in June 2018 in my living room. And when we stayed in a townhome, you could hear echoes, like you could hear pin drops, right? And now to see where we're headed, it's just crazy. But it takes time. It takes focus. It takes, you being committed to your craft. And most importantly, being able to say you can do it. I hope this episode has inspired you, motivated you, and you're ready to crush everything. And I hope you know that your time is here. And if you've been listening, always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Hey, what's up, fam? Thanks for watching. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. We'll see you next week here at School's Over Now What. And always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.